Hi, I am Dr. Kim Sage. Welcome to my channel. I truly am happy you're here, and I really hope that you will find this information helpful and healing in some way on your journey. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, and that way you'll get notified when I post new videos. Okay, we're gonna get right into it. So I'm wrapping up this part of the series on what I call fragmented parenting. And you can check out videos from last week if you want to learn more about that, and if you're just tuning in and you're just joining me. So the idea here is that we are all at once, we are our child selves and our adult selves. And really quickly, for more information and healing courses on healing your inner child that I've created, please check the links down below. And also my flagship course, if you were raised by potentially untreated, borderline, or narcissistic, extremely immature types of parents. You're not really sure how to heal and what to do and how to navigate your life now. Those courses were meant just for you, because I have also walked that path and walk that path every day, and also spend it with clients every day, helping them work through these really difficult and complicated issues and parts of our story. So what I wanted to share today was the last part of what I call this fragmented parenting, as I was saying, because I believe that we are holding at all times many parts of ourselves, but kind of simplifying it into the child and the adult self is often what I use to help me when I am in a triggered position and I'm not really sure what's happening, and I'm finding myself kind of go into that child response. And so I believe we have to heal and talk to the inner child and the inner parent, because we are both. And so the chart I made here from last week, really this map, really breaks down the three main areas where I believe we have these core issues that need to be worked on. The first one is our emotional and mental life, and that really encompasses everything from our thoughts and beliefs and feelings, our sense of self, our emotional expression or not. It's really everything kind of mind and mentally mood related. The second category is the physical self. This is the part of us that is really that autonomic nervous system wiring, the polyvagal theory concepts, how we come out of the womb with an attachment, pattern in our parent, and we must meet them and have our own autonomic nervous system responses that we have to learn to read really inside our body and outside the caretaker. And so we learn to adapt. Our body learns to adapt. And the best example of that is, let's say you had a caregiver who was super anxious and nervous or chronically on eggshells. That meant you had to, kind of be on a heightened state of awareness at all times, more hypervigilant, more attuned, because at any moment you could lose the care you were getting or not get access in some way to the emotional regulation that all children need. And so you become somebody also, because of your caregiver, who is super activated, very hypervigilant, very much fight or flight, and it's hard for you to calm and soothe your body. And that is really the core of polyvagal theory. And in fact, I'm going to post another video this week about how to start working on those parts of our bodies as well, because I believe it's so important. So the physical part is really about your nervous system, your behaviors. Do you use numbing? Do you have addictions? Do you set boundaries? How do you take care of your body? Literally everything physical related. And the last category is our relational selves. It really is how I tie in attachment theory to polyvagal theory and to sort of mind and mood dynamics. So when I'm meeting with someone, I'm looking at how do they deal with feelings or not? What are their thoughts about themselves or not? How do they conduct themselves in the world? Do they set boundaries? Do they not? Do they engage in, like I said, risky behaviors? How do they show up in relationships? Are they more avoidant, or are they a combination? I think all of us have a main style, and we can lean into other styles based on who that other person is. But I'm talking about the initial attachment bonds when I talk about attachment. And so I wanted to create a little bit of a worksheet for you to understand, well, okay, Kim, how does all this actually work? And I wanted to simplify it. And so there's a lot more I could go into. I won't keep making videos on this specific topic, but I wanted to give you just your own little example of what that might look like. So I'm going to post up here as I'm talking this graphic. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but as I said, I will post it probably on, actually I will post it on my website. I will post the map, and I will post this little example, child to adult self. So as I was saying before we get into it, you are holding, and I'm thinking about really your emotional self, your physical self, and your relational self. And you are at all times, in some parts, the inner child and the inner parent. And so my goal is to help you when you are in the inner child and identifying what those emotions and feelings and thoughts and behaviors and relationship patterns are, so that you can tap into that as your internal, like as I said, remothered in my course, remothering energy, reparenting energy. It doesn't have to be female driven, but the idea is that loving, caring, engaging, nurturing energy that you have to give to your internal self, both as the child and the adult. This chart here is going to kind of tie into the basic ideas I said in the map. So the first part, if I'm kind of trying to go from my child self into my adult self, would be to say, in the first box, how do I think, feel, and believe when I'm in my child self? How do I recognize it? So the child kind of goes to these feelings of being, for example, feeling scared and alone, maybe powerless, and maybe thinking something like, I am powerless and nothing ever works out for me. And at the end of the day, maybe deep inside, because of those internal child wounds, I believe that when things happen that are bad, that it's somehow my fault or I deserve them. So a child's thoughts are, it's all me, I'm shameful, I'm bad, I'm powerless, this will never work, right? Because when we're trying to be more balanced as an adult self, we all know that nothing is ever 100% all bad, all good, right? We just don't know. There's a huge, huge gray area. And so that's the first thing, is to identify, though, how do I think and feel and believe when I'm coming from a place of my own childhood? And I often like to tie it back to, oftentimes what we feel is what we felt a lot of in childhood, which is often alone, powerless, scared, unable to change anything because we were children. And so that's the first thing, is to notice, sort of what is going on, what are you thinking and feeling, and what are you believing? The second part is, what does my body, or how does my body feel, and what behaviors do I engage in when I'm in the child self? So in a child self, we might do what we did in childhood. We might shut down. That's that kind of polyvagal idea of the dorsal vagal. You might check out these videos to learn more about that. We might be in a more collapsed kind of trauma response. That collapse and submit I've also talked about, and others talk about. We might not let other people in. We might not take care of our bodies. That's a behavior, that's an action. We might let people say and do whatever they want and not set boundaries when we're in that kind of child self. And when we're in that collapsed state, not also, just feeling like a child self that is depleted and exhausted, but we might actually feel, and we often do, physically drained and tired and sad. And so, it makes it even harder to be motivated to do any kind of exercise or self-care, or really do anything. And lastly, you want to connect to, where do I feel these emotions in my body? So we're looking at everything that's happening in your body, noticing your trauma responses, noticing what you feel like, what happens to your body when you're in that thinking and feeling space of, I'm scared, I'm alone, I'm powerless, nothing ever works out for me. The next category is, how do I relate to others? Coco's at it again. Sorry, my kitten. So hopefully Coco, come here, Coco. Hopefully she'll not make too much noise. Okay, the last two parts are, which connects to the attachment part, is how do I relate to others when I'm in this child self? So in the example here, I might stay alone. I might isolate. I might not ask for help. I might not share my feelings with someone, even someone close to me. I might kind of go into that, well, there's no one to trust, so why would I let anyone in? Or I might not even let myself connect to what I feel. I might feel foggy or numbed out. But that also is a sign I know that, I'm kind of going back into childhood feelings, because when I get kind of emotional, I kind of shut down that way. And so at the core of it is that people don't care about me. I'm not going to ask for help. I'm not thinking about the world from a more secure attachment place, from a place of, connection and trying to build trust and being vulnerable and authentic. I'm in a very much shut out state of mind. So after looking at What do I think, feel, and believe, and how's my body responding in all ways, and how am I relating? Once you start to identify, yeah, I am doing those things, I don't know what to do about it, but I can feel it, I am kind of shutting down, I am exhausted more than I maybe should be, or I am really thinking this kind of fatalistic thought process, like, well, I don't know why I bother, nothing ever works, right? What can I do? And that is the coming in as the reparented, loving adult. And that really is in this course on remothering. This is the course for looking at your childhood wounds. But the bottom line is that you're coming in as the parent and you are saying, okay, I recognize I'm in the child self, but I don't know what to do. So I can start with coming in as a loving, internalized mother or father or parent or caregiver. What would they say and do, and what would they help me do right now? They would lovingly remind me that that feeling of powerlessness was how I felt in childhood. They would remind me that I am no longer in my childhood. I am standing in my adult self. So this happened to me actually before I did this whole thing last week, and I was feeling very hopeless and very afraid, and that was kind of tied to the issue that I had with one of my kids, and it was just this feeling of like, fear and powerlessness. And so what I do is I say, okay, that is my child self. My child self felt powerless and hopeless and unable to force change. I had to adapt to other people and survive and sacrifice myself, and I don't really want to do that. And so I want to lean into my adult self. So my adult self came in, and as I said in the other video last week too, feel free to call your little child your own names, or your adult self. You can make up any names you want. Sometimes I think of myself as like the little Kim, but you can think of it in any way you want. But I reminded myself that that little child is no longer driving the bus, as I say, that I am in charge. And so I acknowledged that was, and I validated that, yeah, you felt that way a lot, but staying in that is not going to help you, and it's not going to help your child right now. And so I would think about, what can I say and do in my adult self? I can remind myself that I can handle whatever outcome is coming. I can remind myself that I am doing the absolute best that I can. I can remind myself that I cannot control other people and their decisions and choices. And that's really hard when we often have these controlling tendencies as adults from these chaotic childhoods, especially when your kids are adults. There's a limit to what you can do. And so I would say to myself, okay, at least I'm trying. For example here, I am strong enough to handle the outcome. I'm not a child anymore, but it's okay that I feel that way. I don't want to respond the same way I did in childhood, and so I'm going to acknowledge all of that feeling state, right? That thought state, that feeling state, that belief state. The next thing I was actually doing was I was actually walking when I did this. And it can be hard for me sometimes to get out the door because I have autoimmune disease and I struggle and I have a lot of fatigue. But I also know that my anxiety is so much better when I move my body. And so I can say, this is the second part, what does my body need, right? So the first part was I acknowledged the feeling self, the feeling and thinking self child, but I also acknowledged that I am no longer in that childhood, and I acknowledged and brought in some adult loving thoughts and some kind of resiliency and strength. Now I want to look at, what does my body need? And so I might decide to take a walk, or make something healthy that I'm going to feel good about, or I might actually make myself cookies and make myself a dessert or a treat, because for me baking is very cathartic. So you have to decide in that regard what feels right for you. I might go to the gym, or I might go to the store and take care of something I've neglected. I might just sit and watch Netflix. If that actually feels like a nurturing act in that moment, that's what I'm going to do, right? I'm not going to shame myself and feel guilty about it. I'm going to honor that I'm depleted and I need some support. My body maybe just needs to rest. So only you know what will help. But I will say that cardio, just fast walking, can be so helpful for anxiety especially. So I'm activating my nervous system, right? I'm trying to, if I'm collapsed, let's say I was shutting down, I would want to lean into that more ventral vagal connected energy, or that sympathetic, that mobilizing energy, either into connection or mobilization. If I was too mobilized, I'd want to kind of come down a little bit and slow down and rest, and also work on connection, but getting my body to that more regulated state. So you have to figure out, what does my body need right now? From self-care to food to exercise to your nervous system first and foremost. Because oftentimes, if let's say I'm panicking, I'm going into that hypervigilant fight or flight state, that pairs really nicely with I'm powerless, I'm afraid, I'm scared, and now I'm just super anxious with nothing, no way to solve it. And so then I want to look at how do I work on connection. That is the part that relates to the attachment, to relationship to others. Do I want to reach out to my therapist and say, hey, you know what, I think I need an extra session this week? Do I want to call a friend? Do I want to actually say no to something that's going to deplete me and set a boundary around it? People that might decide to have a drink might say, you know what, I'm actually not going to drink tonight. I'm going to take a walk instead and listen to a podcast. I'm going to do a meditation, or some kind of tapping exercise, right? What I'm trying to do is look at every part, my emotions, my feelings, my body, and how I relate to myself in the world, and try to come in as the adult to the child. So that is an example of what to do. I know I could probably expand so much more on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts and maybe your own examples, but I think that the points are to try to recognize when you're in that inner child wounded self, and then to learn to do things and to say things, which I talk about in this course. It's not just about putting a sticky note, as I keep saying, and saying, oh, love your inner child. That is a good thing, but it's not enough. You have to set up your life. And I actually created a 3-part protocol. It's just really simple on self-safety, self-nurturing, and self-soothing that looks at these parts also, that matches exactly kind of with this, which is what do I need to do and say and work on to feel better, to get out of that inner child wounded state and into my more loving adult self. So that is it for today's video. I know it is so much longer than I intended, but I wanted to make sure I explained it, and I hope you found it helpful. Please stay safe and well. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you soon. Take good care.